Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Two Average Joes. Today we're gonna have a special guest star, somebody that I think will be eye-opening, somebody who has been in the system. So this isn't just two guys talking about something. This is, what we try to do at Two Average Joes, bring in somebody with some experience and some knowledge. And if you're going to talk about things that are going on in the prison system, you have to know what you're talking about. Because I believe, and Kevin King, our guest today, will let you know what we think is happening and what's really happening is not the same thing. And I think that's one of the problems we have, whether it's true crime or you're dealing with prisons or you're dealing with politics. We get the illusion that we know what we're talking about, but in reality, there's a good chance you missed something. And that something is big, not small. So without any other interruption, I'm going to introduce you to Kevin King. I'm going to let Kevin tell you a little bit about himself.
Yes, my name is Kevin King. Presently, I am 60 years old, and I was incarcerated in 1982 under a murder charge at the age of 18 years old. Until December 8th of 2022, I served time in the Michigan Department of Corrections virtually. I was held in almost all of Michigan's prisons at one time or another.
So you've got some experience. How many years does that make that you were in the system, Kevin?
Almost 41 years.
Yeah, that's a long, long time. Kevin and I have spoken often, and one of the things that we've discussed it in detail is the perception that you talking about just regular folks, and there's no insulting you if you don't know, but if you're watching this, you need to know, is what you think's going on and what's really going on in our prison systems are something totally different. So Kevin, just to ask you this question numerous times, if you were just talking to a regular person on the street, tell them what you think would be the biggest difference between reality and what a lot of people think's happening in the justice system.
Well, there's many plateaus to that question. Mainly, people in society have no real perception of what's transpiring within the prison system, not just in Michigan, but across this country.
Right.
They're under the impression that people are coddled during the time of incarceration, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. You can look at and research on the internet all the suits against the medical service that prisoners have, which is best terminology is diabolical if you get anything. Then you go into the food. There's plenty of suits on that. And these are suits that were not brought by prisoners, but were brought from attorneys and civil rights people because they see the atrocities that people confined. They're not given TVs, they're not given radios, they're not given store items, they're not given cosmetics. You get a roll of toilet paper a week and a pair of state blues, and good luck to you.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed that several years ago, I had an opportunity to do some security, and I was talking to people who were in the hospital, who were prisoners at the time. They weren't in the hospital because they were prisoners, and they weren't in the hospital and used to be prisoners. They were people who had gotten sick or been assaulted in the prisons, and they're now in the hospital. And one of the things that I found is when they were talking, even when they were from different facilities, is they were basically telling the same story. And one of the things is I would share some of these stories that people go, wow, this is happening. And the first thing that came out of people's mouth was, well, they're prisoners and they're lying. I mean, like I've talked to 50 people from different prisons. They didn't all get together and conspire to tell the same story, right? And the health was a big one. And I hate to say it, just the day-to-day treatment that you didn't just trying to survive became the ultimate goal. That survival was the ultimate goal with every one of these people. And again, obviously people would think that everybody was an axe murderer, and that was not true with the people I was talking to. That was not true with a lot of people who have brought things up to them. They're in there for sometimes very minor crimes, sometimes they're medium crimes. But the point is, the treatment is pretty bad. If one of the stunners would be, and I kind of want you to elaborate on this, is at what point do you get in there and your survival becomes the most important thing? When do you realize that survival's job one?
I think you realize that survival is paramount above everything else on your first day of incarceration. Um, the prison system is set up. If you can talk to any sociologist, any psychologist, and the psychological negative ramifications for somebody incarcerated is impacting society and will impact society. Um, we see all the time on the news media, an ex-prisoner, an ex-felon committed this crime, an ex-felon committed that crime. But there's one common denominator, and that's, where did they come from? They came from our prison system. And why are these people exiting the prison system worse off than they went in? Now, that's a double-edged thing, because you said that not everybody is a murderer or an axe killer or horrific crime. Most crimes of murder, if you look at all statistical information across this country, is done out of fear,
Mm-hmm.
hatred, or love. So, murderers have the lowest recidivism on record across this country, no matter what sentencing guidelines or government, state, whatever. It's under 1%. And in the prison system, they often use people with long indeterminate sentences as role models and guidance and stuff, because they're the most passive prisoners. Most people that are incarcerated for an escalated crime don't reoffend because of maturity. The same social environment is not available to them. Fear, love, hate. They mature over time. So it's hard to believe, but the people that present the most threat to society over time, and according to recidivism rates, are people of lower crimes, robberies, assaults, auto theft. They range up into the recidivism rate of 62%. 62% recommitting crimes, and under 1% for a murder or a long indeterminate sentence. So we really need to evaluate as society where we're going and what we want.
And let me ask the question here, because again, it's something we've touched on, but I think everybody would be interested. And you mentioned maturity, okay? And I know that has been brought up by other people I've talked to, that there's actually this kind of strange belief systems you get in prison and you don't mature, when in reality the exact opposite happens. There is a maturity level.
Well, that's in two regards. A maturity, as far as a physical and mental maturity, does transpire. A lot of times people are stagnated because of a lack of social interaction.
Right.
And they don't know how to, so they listen to the same music. They picture themselves in the same clothes, the
Right.
same cars. They stagnate.
Right.
Social structure, they stagnate. Psychological structure, they mature.
Yeah. I think that's interesting, because I noticed that a little bit myself with dealing with people, was the people that were in there for a little bit longer period of time in the prisons, was there is a moment where you're frozen where you were. But I'm not sure that's because you lack maturity, other than you were taken out of society placed in this other setting, and you are kind of where you were at that moment. You're just
Yes.
same car, same music. I can actually see where that would make sense. Not healthy for them.
Being incarcerated is equivalent to taking a person and putting them in a closet, closing the door for 6, 7, 10 years, and opening up the door when they're released and exposing them to the technological advancements and the advancements of society. Um, it's called, if you look it up, it's called cultural shock.
Mhm.
And it impacts prisoners more than anybody because we are removed from society. And the fact that we are removed, prisoners are removed to that degree, um, shows the lack of rehabilitation, because at least you should keep somebody up with advancements of society, um, the computers, the cell phones, um, the cars, the paying the bills. I mean, everything's been removed from a person, but yet you release them and expect them to function normally. This doesn't make any logical sense.
Now I know you had some assistance because I know you're working and you're doing things and you've had a really good experience in a lot of ways, but it had to be stunning when you got out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Um, it was overwhelming.
Mm.
Um, Luckily, and I think that it's a rarity, and I think that I was extremely blessed. Um, Luckily, I taught myself the law, and in such a way that the day I was released, I was hired,
Yes.
um, because I established working for an attorney for over 15 years prior to being released from the confines of prison system,
Mhm.
which is completely unheard of across the board. I mean, I'm not going to say completely unheard of. I'm going to say extremely rare.
Very rare.
And thankful to Robert Baker
Yes.
and Crystal Gomes and my wife. My wife has taught me so much about the technological advancements, to
But
where if
you,
I didn't have this support group that I
yeah.
had, I wouldn't have survived.
Now, you at least had, I'm not saying you didn't have shot because I know you did, so we're not going to act like that, but you at least had a support system, something to hold you up. And I
A
think,
very unique, a
you know,
very unique support system. Um, the prison system, not just in Michigan but throughout this country, aims to isolate people, and they don't want people to obtain knowledge, because if they obtain knowledge, they're a threat to them.
mhm,
And I want to emphasize that there are some very exceptional people within our correctional system, but they're the minority.
right.
Um, the majority of them should not be in the positions that they're in. And again, don't go off what I'm saying. Use the internet and research this stuff. They are literally, and I mean literally, killing people,
Mhm.
raping people, and I am talking about the people that oversee
Yes.
the
And there's
criminals.
lawsuits to prove that.
Yes, I mean, if you search out rape of female prisoners, rape of male prisoners, of juvenile prisoners, there's cases, there's federal documents out there to support the claims that something is wrong behind our prison walls. And nobody's really looking at it because it's not politically correct.
Right. No, I agree with you there. I think it falls into that. Like when I first got hit with my stuff and I was listening to these guys talk, and you said something, people immediately went into it was almost shocking to me that people were almost like they deserve it. And I'm like, hold on. Never forget that the justice system is a government entity. Okay. And that people do have rights. And I ran into some stuff where people were just talking. It's like, we got to do a better job of framing this.
And I agree with you there. But I emphasize this, that if I was to sit on and talk to anybody and say, no, the Jews got it coming. Nah, the blacks got it coming. No, the Mexicans got it coming. Everybody would say, oh, they'd get in an uproar and say you can't
Yeah,
do that.
that's
But
horrible.
if you say the prisoners got it coming, they
Right.
accept that. But the
Yeah.
prisoners are made up of the blacks, the Mexicans, the Jews, and the whites.
Yeah.
So somewhere in our societies, our social structure, it's become okay to degrade and hate prisoners.
Yeah. I
Um,
would agree 100% just from
it
what you.
makes no sense.
Yeah. I was actually, I never like to refer to myself as being naive because we all like to be wrong. Right. And I was literally stunned at some of the responses I got, which is like, whoa, if you said that anybody else had it coming, you would be viewed as a horrible person. Okay.
Yes.
Just plain and simple. But if you said prisoners deserved it, and you're like, nah, that's just crazy. Because at the end of the day, first off, you're making an assumption that everybody is a horrible person, which is not true. You and I have talked numerous times. We agree that prisons are necessary. People need to be there. Many people need to be there for a long time. We've never said anything different. But when your response is so cold that you can basically act like you believe these people can do anything to them. And this is stuff that's been proven. The rape, the lack of medical care, all of that, it's been proven. And yet some people just blow it off, and I find that amazing.
And a response to that would be that I have it documented. I've saved 6 people's lives,
Mhm.
including some corrections officers and some staff, and prisoners. I pay taxes. I work every day hard.
Right. And I know y'all guys are rocking.
So, but over 98% of the people incarcerated throughout this country will be released.
Yeah.
So if you put a rabbit in a cage and poke that rabbit with a stick, that rabbit's going to bite back at that stick. It's a tame rabbit. If you do this to prisoners and you put that psychological abuse on them, when they get released and they have the same attitude that society has as to screw the prisoners, they don't have nothing coming, don't cry when the prisoners bite back.
Yeah.
When the ex-felon gets out, you paid for this system. You created this system, and you're not doing nothing to correct it. They know this is going on, but nobody's correcting it.
One of the things that I found interesting, one of our very, very first conversations you and I ever had, probably over a year ago, when you talked about the people that are in prison, a lot of them, and we're not stereotyping folks, a lot of them cannot read, they cannot write, they have some other issues going on. Those things need to be corrected. And what do you see happening with that? Because that's mind blowing, because you take it for granted everybody can read and write, let's say. So what's kind of that view on that? How do you think that affects the system also?
Well, it goes to the average education level for somebody incarcerated in Michigan is the 5th grade. So essentially, you're putting a 5th grader in a closet for a number of years, not exposing them to any advancements of society, opening up the door and expecting them to function normally. And so if that's happening, and it is happening,
Right.
there's no doubt about that, then where's the rehabilitation? What is the purpose of our
Right.
prison system behind a warehousing system? One of the most shocking things that's going on in this prison system, and it's going on in other states too, is that they're creating a drug program. They're issuing psychotropic drugs to prisoners. They're taking them to the gym. They're giving them drugs because of their addiction. Well, how are these people addicted if they've been locked up for 9 or 10 years?
Yeah.
So why not work on getting them off drugs? Why are you putting them on drugs? This doesn't make any sense.
I think that if we could ever sit down, and we're going to do it because we're going to have more than one conversation, obviously, this is just kind of an introduction. But because I want us to be able to do a lot on covering this with two average Joes and just you, Kevin, in general, and specifically just some of the stuff that's happening. It's like, we act like this is just this giant, we're gonna get everybody better. And we're not even handling their drug problems. Matter of fact, they may be worse. And then you have to ask the question, how does it get in?
Well, that's another topic. Let me emphasize first and foremost that there are some very exceptional people within the correction
Right,
system, employees, guards, counselors, um, medical people that are trying to do the right thing. But as I said, they're the minority. But for me, they were essential in keeping my sanity.
yes,
Um, it's hard to be in an environment like that um, without attaching to normalcy and having normal conversations. And there's people that are retired from the Michigan Department of Corrections and moved on to other jobs that I am still in contact with
right,
as far as emailing, calling, meeting for dinners and lunches because they're real people, just like some of the prisoners are real people. But these are the people that have written letters for me,
right,
that I have access to their homes. So if everybody's perceived, I don't have any tattoos.
right.
I only swear and stuff when I get mad. So,
I can assure
and
you that I cuss more than you do from our phone call.
yeah, you're right. But and I've met some good senators and I've talked to Congress people and stuff that are looking at what's going on, but they're going against the grain of normalcy for them.
Yes,
And what can one or two people really do? This has to be on a broader range of people really looking what's going on behind the prison walls. Over 20 years ago, I wrote an article for a newspaper, and I was called. I said, "Terrorist breeding camps are in your backyard."
mm,
That was far before the word terrorist
you're
became
right,
um, known or used. And I said, something's wrong behind the prison walls. When a purse snatcher gets out or an auto theft person gets out and they commit worse crimes,
mm,
they're coming from the prison system. What's going on?
right,
Why are we failing in this country across the board? But yet, over in Canada, they have the lowest recidivism rate in the world. You know why? Because they educate their prisoners.
right.
They feed their prisoners. They give them medical care. They treat them normalcy.
Yeah. I don't even think that's one of the reasons this is a good introduction piece, and the things that you said are outstanding. It's like you got half of the people walking around in America thinking that everybody is eating you know, high level food, everybody's
Huh.
got a TV and they're living all of this. When in reality, they're living in a brutal situation. And when they do get out, that changes. And
Absolutely.
just act like it doesn't is crazy.
Absolutely. For over 2 years, I never went to the chow hall. I would eat instant rice and instant refried beans.
Mm,
That I was fortunate enough to where um, I was able to generate enough income for myself through legal work and other means
mm.
um, to feed myself. The majority of the prisoners can't do that, and I would say the highest majority of them can't do that.
And that's not
So
even encouraged, which stuns me. That y'all making some money to be able to do a little bit. Because again, ain't nobody making $1 million in jail. Okay.
no,
But
no, not at
but
all.
that's
The average income for a prisoner in Michigan is $16 a month.
mhm,
Now, with that, I want you to understand that to buy a tube of toothpaste is $5.
right,
So that's one third of their income just for the toothpaste. They can't buy, well, they can buy a bag of coffee that's $7 for a bag of coffee. A can of tuna,
Mhm.
the equivalent of a can of tuna would be $12.
Yeah,
So that's just one meal, if it's even one meal. So people are really under this misconception that they're coddled by the tax dollars.
right.
Um, and
We're eating
you know,
steak and lobster.
yes. Well, what's really interesting about that is if you read the menu that
Mhm.
they serve, it sounds a lot better than what it is. Um, Salisbury steak
Yeah,
is the same as the meatball, and the meatball is the same as some other items on there. But it's oatmeal. They call it cat head, and it smells like a cooked cat head.
right.
Um, the food is atrocious. There's you find bugs in the vegetables.
Mhm.
Um, you can't a person eat mold on the bread. You can't eat that food.
Right. And I know that one of the things that always shocked me, and I don't have the price on it when they told me, but I was stunned. But like, everybody thinks everybody's eating premium. I got stunned when I was told that Vienna sausages that you could buy from the canteen at an overinflated price was a delicacy.
Yes,
You know?
and now and that reminds me, they sell individual packs of Spam, one slice
Right.
that's probably a half inch thick, and it's $4.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
So, people, and if there's the internet's a fabulous thing. I don't want anybody to take my word or
no, they
your
need to
word.
look it up. I agree with you.
Yes, search this stuff out.
Yeah.
This is terrible. If they knew, if we did that to any segment of society, if we did that to the inner city, if we did that to the suburb, or if we did that to um, anybody else, oh, there would be an uproar.
Oh yeah. I
One, one story that I found really funny is Carl Levin was a senator here in Michigan, and when Guantanamo Bay was uh, videotaped walking prisoners on a leash, he got
mhm,
on the news and he said, "This is an atrocity that we're treating human beings in today's society this way." And I looked out the window,
mhm.
and here in Michigan, they were walking prisoners across the yard on leashes as he spoke. So nobody really knows what goes on behind prison walls. They have no idea because everything is devised to hide in the shadows of what they're doing. You can't get the security camera footage because of security issues. You
Right.
can't FOI documents because of security issues. And anybody that comes in, they give advance notice and they clean everything up.
Right.
They close the areas down, they lock the prisoners down, and it's all cosmetic when they come through.
I think it goes into unfortunately what passes for knowledge, in America, that you really can have somebody read an article and they think they have knowledge, or
Oh
read
yeah.
2 articles and think that. It's like, no, dude, you need to really sit down and look at what's happening. And if you ever get an opportunity, instead of being judgmental, talk to somebody that's lived in the system.
I have a couple of friends of mine that were also incarcerated. One owns a multi-million-dollar business right now.
Mhm.
The other one is a millionaire. But in talking to these people, you would never know. And unfortunately, there's the few that filter back into society, they're never talked about. They're
No.
not the ghost in the closet because I don't know why, but we as a society have to hate somebody.
Yeah,
It's
I'll
like,
agree with that 100%. Somebody's the bad guy.
yep,
I'll
somebody's the
tell you
bad guy.
another thing, and I'm going to close on this because we're going to talk again. And I want us to make sure that there's a lot of things we'll have to talk about. There is this weird part, and this is my opinion, that Americans do like to punish people. We like to have some group of people that we can say are less than we are. and they need to be identified and they need to be singled out. And that worries me because that's the beginning of where you just get some hateful behavior. And I think that that's what you got in the prisons a lot of times is hateful behavior because you don't have people who feel we're not picking on anybody, but they feel defenseless when they get in there too because there's not really a lot they can do. And maybe they're right about that. So if other people don't speak up for them, nobody's going to.
I think that people need to really investigate to the wholeheartedly what's going on behind the prison walls, not only in this state, but throughout this country.
Yeah,
But they better have a strong stomach because it's a horror story.
it is a horror.
Um, and, thank God to all the supportive people, Robert, Crystal, my wife, um, because I put my actions of saving people's lives, of paying taxes, of working, and parallel with anybody you want to bring up.
Right.
I'm trying to walk the straight line of society, and a lot of people want to do that. The majority of the people they don't want to do anything but filter back in,
Right.
and we really need to look at what's going on. If we don't look, you're if we don't take action to correct and we have the ability to do so, we're just as guilty as the people committing the wrongs.
I agree. And I'll tell you this too, and take it one step further. A lot of the people in there, they really are. They're defenseless. Number two, if you think this isn't happening in your state where you're listening to it, you're wrong. It's happening all over. And the prison system, for what it's worth, is now $1 billion industry.
A multi-billion-dollar
Yeah.
industry. And in closing, let me say that it is imperative that we learn not to hate a
Yes.
group of people just because of incarceration.
Yep. I'm with you 100%. Kevin, I've appreciated this conversation. I hope everybody has enjoyed this and it's been enlightening. And we're going to be back at it here probably in a couple of weeks, Kev. We'll do it again. But look, I appreciate you. I thank you. And I hope to speak to you real soon, my friend.
Deep respect. Be well.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.